The Quantum Gambit. The holographic display aboard the TDF Artemis painted the bridge in an ominous red glow as Captain Eliza Rice studied the incoming data with narrowed eyes. Her vessel, humanity's most advanced warship and best-kept secret, hung in the darkness of space beyond Pluto's orbit. Before her, the tactical display showed what Earth's long-range sensors had detected just hours earlier. An armada of alien vessels, their formation stretching across space like a vast predatory net. Final count confirmed, Captain. Lieutenant Commander Darius Okafor reported, his voice steady despite the tension evident in his rigid posture. Our sensors detect approximately 500,000 void-born capital ships entering the outer solar system. Their current trajectory will bring them to Earth in less than 72 hours. Eliza's expression remained impassive, but her mind raced through tactical scenarios. The Artemis represented humanity's last hope, a prototype vessel incorporating technology that had existed only in theoretical physics just 5 years ago. The Voidborn had systematically destroyed 7 human colony worlds in the past decade, each time with increasing efficiency. Earth had known this day would come. Status of the quantum displacement drive, she asked, turning to the ship's chief scientist. Dr. Isabel Wade looked up from her console, dark circles under her eyes testament to the endless hours she'd spent perfecting the experimental technology. The QDD is operating at 94% efficiency, Captain. All simulations indicate we can maintain full quantum displacement for up to 14 hours before requiring a cooldown cycle. Eliza nodded. Then we make those 14 hours count. She turned to face her bridge crew, each member selected from the best Earth had to offer. The Voidborn don't know we exist yet. They expect to find Earth defended by conventional ships and orbital platforms, not a vessel that can exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. She activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. You all know what's at stake today. 5 billion lives on Earth, and the very future of humanity. Every simulation we've run shows that conventional tactics cannot stop this invasion. That's why we're here. Her voice carried throughout the ship's compartments, where engineers monitored power systems, tactical officers prepared weapons, and medical staff ready for casualties. The Artemis was built for this moment. Her quantum displacement drive makes us nearly impossible to target. Our phase-shifted weapons can bypass any known defense. But make no mistake, we're one ship against 500,000. Our only advantage is that they don't know what we're capable of. Yet. She paused, letting her words sink in. We launch in 10 minutes. Remember your training. Remember Earth. Remember why we're here. As the Artemis powered up its main systems, the ship seemed to vibrate with potential energy. The quantum displacement drive, humanity's greatest technological achievement, began its initialization sequence, creating the subtle distortion in the fabric of reality around the vessel. QDD reaching operational threshold, Dr. Wei announced as glowing blue energy coursed through specialized conduits throughout the ship. Quantum field stabilizing. Tactical, prepare targeting solutions, Eliza ordered. Communications, maintain full spectrum silence. We'll let our actions speak for us. The Artemis accelerated toward the approaching Voidborn fleet, its revolutionary propulsion system leaving no conventional energy signature for the aliens to detect. As they closed the distance, the true scale of the enemy armada became apparent. Massive obsidian vessels shaped like elongated diamonds, their surfaces rippling with strange energies. First wave of Voidborn ships in weapons range in 30 seconds, Okafor reported. Initiate quantum displacement on my mark, Eliza commanded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Reality itself seemed to blur around the Artemis as the quantum displacement drive engaged fully. The ship now existed in multiple states simultaneously, creating a probabilistic cloud that made precise targeting impossible. QDD operating at full capacity, Dr. Wei confirmed. We're successfully displaced across 17 quantum states. The first wave of void-borne energy weapons passed harmlessly through the space where the Artemis both was and wasn't. On the main view screen, confusion spread through the enemy formation as their sensors struggled to lock onto the human vessel that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Weapons status, Eliza demanded. Phase-shifted torpedoes armed and ready, the tactical officer replied. Targeting solutions calculated for maximum cascade effect. Fire. The Artemis launched its first salvo of weapons, not conventional torpedoes, but projectiles capable of existing in the same quantum uncertainty as their mothership. As they approached their targets, they split into multiple probability states, making interception impossible. The results exceeded even Dr. Wei's theoretical models. When the phase-shifted torpedoes struck the lid voidborne vessels, they injected quantum instability directly into the alien ship's structural matrices. The massive vessels began to shimmer as they were forced to exist in multiple states simultaneously, intact, damaged, and destroyed, before collapsing in on themselves in spectacular implosions. Direct hits on 17 primary targets, Okafor reported, unable to keep the astonishment from his voice. Quantum cascade effect spreading to adjacent vessels. 29, 43, 62 confirmed destructions and counting. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the carefully ordered voidborne formation began to fragment, ships scattering in confusion as their commanders tried to comprehend what they were facing. They're launching fighter craft, Okafor announced. Hundreds of thousands of them. Eliza studied the tactical display. The voidborne were responding to an unprecedented threat, the only way they knew how, with overwhelming numbers. Dr. Wei, can we extend our quantum field to affect incoming fighters? She asked. The scientist's hands flew across her console. Yes, but it will place additional strain on the QDD. We might have to reduce our phase variance to compensate. Do it. Tactical, prepare defensive pattern alpha. As the wave of alien fighters approached, the Artemis quantum field expanded. The small craft began to vanish as they entered the field, their guidance systems unable to process the contradictory sensor data of a target that both was and wasn't there. For 2 hours, the battle continued with the Artemis systematically dismantling the voidborne advance forces. Nearly 80,000 enemy vessels had been destroyed without a single direct hit on the human ship. But Eliza knew better than to celebrate prematurely. The voidborne commanders were adapting, their formations becoming more erratic, making it harder to predict their movements and maximize the cascade effect of the quantum torpedoes. Captain, Dr. Wei called out, her voice tense. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from their rear echelon. They're linking their ships together somehow. Before Eliza could respond, the Artemis shuddered violently as dozens of voidborne weapons found their marks simultaneously. Direct hits across multiple sections. Okafor shouted over the wail of emergency sirens. How is that possible? Dr. Wei's face had gone pale as she studied her readings. They've created a crude quantum entanglement network. They're using their vast numbers to compensate for their technological disadvantage, coordinating their fire across all potential quantum states. Another barrage struck the Artemis, this time breaching the outer hull in 2 sections. Damage reports flooded in from all decks as emergency teams rushed to contain the breaches. QDD efficiency dropping, Dr. Wei reported, fighting to keep her station operational as the ship trembled under continuous fire. Down to 76%. The entanglement network is allowing them to predict our phase variances. Eliza gripped her command chair as another volley rocked the ship. The voidborne had proven more adaptable than expected, turning their numerical superiority into an effective counter to humanity's technological edge. Options, she demanded, watching as more enemy ships joined the entanglement network, their combined firepower becoming increasingly difficult to avoid. I have an idea, Dr. Wei said, already making adjustments to the quantum displacement drive. Their entanglement network relies on quantum predictability. What if we deliberately destabilize our own quantum field? That sounds dangerous, Okafor commented. working to stabilize the ship's defensive systems after another near miss. "It is," Dr. Wei admitted. "We'd be introducing controlled chaos into our phase variances. It would make us harder to predict, but it would also reduce our effective combat time. The QDD wasn't designed to operate under these conditions. How much would it reduce our operating time?" Eliza asked, eyes fixed on the tactical display as the Voidborn tightened their formation. "From 14 hours to about 5, Dr. Wei replied. "But without it, we might not last another 30 minutes. Another barrage struck the Artemis, this time breaching one of the auxiliary power conduits. Fires erupted on 3 decks, and the medical bay reported the first casualties. "Do it," Eliza ordered. "Lieutenant Commander Okafor, prepare to switch to fractal attack pattern Delta. If we're going to fight chaos with chaos, let's make it count." As Dr. Wei initiated the quantum field destabilization, the space around the Artemis began to ripple in strange ways. The ship's quantum signature became erratic, splitting into even more unpredictable states than before. "Quantum field destabilization complete," Wei announced. "We're now operating in what I call controlled uncertainty." The results exceeded expectations. The Voidborn entanglement network, designed to predict and counter regular quantum phase variations, couldn't handle the intentionally chaotic patterns. Ships began disappearing in fractals, each destruction creating unpredictable ripples through the quantum field. "Their network is collapsing," Okafor reported. "They can't maintain quantum coherence across their fleet." But victory had come at a cost. The Artemis power systems were straining under the unusual conditions, and warning indicators showed multiple systems approaching critical levels. "Captain," Dr. Wei called out, her voice urgent, "the quantum chaos is affecting our own systems more than anticipated. We're seeing microfractures in the ship's quantum structure. Can we contain it?" "Yes, but we'll need to reduce our offensive operations. We can maintain this state for maybe 5 hours instead of 14. As the battle raged on, Eliza noticed something alarming on the tactical display. The remaining Voidborn ships, still numbering over 400,000, were regrouping into a new formation. A message from Earth Command confirmed her fears. Unusual gravitational disturbances were being detected throughout the system. The quantum chaos was having unexpected effects on local spacetime, and the Voidborn were preparing to use it against them. "Dr. Wei," she asked, studying the enemy's new formation, "could they use these gravitational distortions to their advantage?" The scientist's expression was troubled. "If they're clever enough, yes. They might try to use the gravitational distortions to create a containment field, trap us in a single quantum state." As the Artemis fired another salvo of phase-shifted torpedoes, a critical power junction overloaded, sending cascading failures through the ship's propulsion system. The vessel lurched violently, throwing crew members against bulkheads and consoles. Main power fluctuating. An engineer shouted over the emergency channel. "The quantum core is approaching critical instability." Eliza looked at Dr. Wei, who was frantically working to stabilize the systems. "How long do we have?" "Minutes, maybe less," Wei responded, her fingers flying across her console. "If we don't reduce the quantum field stress immediately, the core will initiate an emergency shutdown, or worse, a catastrophic release of quantum energy." With the ship's systems failing and the Voidborn closing in for the kill, Eliza made the hardest decision of her career. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency quantum jump. Destination: Earth orbital defense perimeter." As the Artemis disengaged from combat and prepared to retreat, Eliza stared at the enemy armada still pursuing them. They had damaged the Voidborn fleet, destroying perhaps 100,000 ships, but it wasn't enough. They needed a new strategy, and fast. The fate of Earth depended on it. Defiance beyond dimensions. The Artemis materialized within Earth's defense perimeter, its hull scorched and breached in multiple sections. Emergency crews rushed to contain fires and seal compartments as Captain Eliza Reyes ordered an immediate damage assessment. "Status report," she demanded, surveying her wounded bridge. Several consoles sparked with electrical fires, and the main view screen flickered erratically. "The quantum displacement drive is offline," Dr. Wei reported, her face streaked with soot from a nearby console explosion. "Quantum core temperature exceeding safe parameters. We need at least 6 hours to cool it down and recalibrate the field stabilizers." Lieutenant Commander Okafor looked up from his tactical station. "Weapons systems at 43% capacity. Hull integrity compromised in 17 sections. Casualty reports still coming in. Current count at 27 injured, 9 critical, 3 confirmed fatalities." Eliza absorbed the information with a grim expression. They had dealt a significant blow to the Voidborn fleet, but at a terrible cost, and the enemy still outnumbered them hundreds of thousands to one. "Captain," the communications officer called out. "Incoming transmission from Earth Defense Command." The fractured view screen displayed the stern face of Admiral Helena Zhao, Supreme Commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces. "Captain Rice, your preliminary report is concerning. The Artemis was our best hope against the Voidborn advance. The ship performed beyond expectations, Admiral," Eliza replied. "But the Voidborn proved more adaptable than our simulations predicted. They're learning, evolving their tactics in real time." "Then we need to evolve faster," Zhao stated flatly. "Our long-range sensors indicate the remaining Voidborn vessels will reach Earth orbit in approximately 10 hours. Conventional defense platforms may buy us another 6 hours at most. The Artemis must be operational before then." "Admiral, with all due respect," Dr. Wei interjected, "the quantum displacement drives sustained critical damage. The cooldown cycle alone requires—" "Find a way, Doctor," Zhao interrupted. "Earth's survival depends on it." The transmission ended abruptly. Eliza turned to her chief scientist. "Isabel, I need options." Dr. Wei ran her fingers through her disheveled hair, her brilliant mind already working through possibilities. "There might be a way," she said slowly, "but it's even more experimental than the original KDD design. Tell me, instead of trying to repair the standard displacement drive, we could reconfigure it to operate on quantum tunneling principles. Rather than existing in multiple states simultaneously, we could phase completely out of normal spacetime for brief intervals." "You're suggesting we make the ship intangible?" Okafor asked incredulously. "Not exactly," Wei clarified. "We'd be shifting into an adjacent quantum dimension, essentially slipping between the fabric of reality itself. The Voidborn wouldn't be able to target us because we'd literally not be in the same universe when they fire." "What's the catch?" Eliza asked, knowing there had to be one. Wei's expression turned grave. "Power requirements would be exponentially higher. We'd only be able to maintain the quantum tunnel state for seconds at a time. And the stress on the ship's structural integrity would be significant." "How significant?" "After approximately 20 activation cycles, the quantum stresses would tear the Artemis apart at the molecular level." Silence fell over the bridge as the implications became clear. 20 cycles. 20 chances to strike at an enemy that still outnumbered them by several 100,000 to one. "Do it," Eliza ordered. "Lieutenant Commander Okafor, while Dr. Wei's team reconfigures the drive, I want every available weapon system overcharged and ready. If we only get 20 shots, each one needs to count." Over the next 8 hours, the crew of the Artemis worked feverishly to implement Dr. Wei's modifications. Engineering teams bypassed damaged systems, rerouted power conduits, and reinforced critical structural points. In the armory, tactical officers recalibrated the remaining phase-shifted torpedoes to maximize their destructive potential. As the work neared completion, a new transmission arrived, not from Earth Command, but from the Voidborn fleet itself. The alien commander appeared on the view screen, its form vaguely humanoid but with unsettling proportions. Multiple eyes blinked asynchronously on a face covered in iridescent scales. "Humans of Earth," it began, its voice translated through an algorithmic filter. "Your defensive capabilities are impressive but futile. The vessel that engaged our advance forces has revealed weaknesses in our approach, but you have merely delayed the inevitable. Surrender now, and a portion of your species will be preserved for study. Resist, and we will render your world uninhabitable." Eliza stepped forward, ensuring she was visible in the return transmission. "This is Captain Eliza Reyes of the Terran Defense Force. We do not recognize your authority to make such demands. Your fleet has already been reduced by 1/5 of its original strength. Withdraw now, or face complete destruction." The alien commander's multiple eyes narrowed. "Your confidence is misplaced, Captain. Our remaining forces are more than sufficient to overwhelm your defenses. Your experimental vessel's quantum technology is impressive, but we have already adapted countermeasures. You have one planetary rotation to consider our terms." As the transmission ended, Eliza turned to Dr. Wei. "How close are we?" "Final calibrations complete," Wei replied. "The quantum tunneling drive is online, but as I warned, 20 cycles is an optimistic estimate. The molecular stress could become critical earlier." "Then we make each cycle count," Eliza stated, addressing her crew. "All hands to battle stations. We launch in 30 minutes." As the Artemis prepared to depart Earth's defense perimeter, Admiral Zhou sent one final message. "Captain Rice, our planetary evacuation protocols are at 23% completion. Every hour you buy us means thousands more civilians reach the underground shelters. Earth stands with you." The Artemis accelerated toward the approaching void-borne armada, its new quantum tunneling drive humming with potential energy. The tactical display showed the enemy fleet had adopted a new formation, a vast three-dimensional web designed to ensnare and overwhelm their single adversary. "They've arranged their ships to maximize weapons coverage," Okafor noted. "No matter which vector we approach from, at least 50,000 vessels will have firing solutions." Eliza studied the display, searching for weaknesses. "Dr. Wei, explain exactly how the tunneling drive differs from our previous approach." We gestured to a holographic representation of the ship. "Instead of creating quantum uncertainty around our position, we'll be completely removing ourselves from normal spacetime for approximately 8.3 seconds per cycle. During that period, we'll be completely invulnerable, but also unable to affect normal space. We'll need to re-enter normal spacetime to deploy weapons, at which point we'll be briefly vulnerable. So timing is everything," Eliza concluded. "Tactical, analyze the void-borne formation. Identify nodes where ships are most densely packed and calculate optimal points of re-entry to maximize our torpedo cascade effects." As the Artemis closed to engagement range, the void-borne opened fire. A wall of energy weapons illuminated space like an artificial supernova. "Quantum tunneling drive engaging now," Dr. Wei announced. Reality itself seemed to fold around the Artemis. The view screen displayed a bizarre spectral vision of normal space, the void-borne energy weapons visible as ghostly streams passing harmlessly through the dimensional barrier. "Tunneling stable," Wei confirmed. 7.6 seconds remaining before we must re-enter normal spacetime. "Weapons locked on primary target cluster," Okafor reported, "ready to fire the moment we phase back." 3, 2, 1. Re-entry complete, Wei called out. The Artemis materialized in the heart of the void-borne formation. Before the aliens could react, Okafor launched a full spread of enhanced phase-shifted torpedoes. "Immediate tunneling re-engagement in 3 seconds," Wei warned as the torpedoes streaked toward their targets. Just as the first void-borne vessels began to return fire, the Artemis vanished again into its quantum tunnel. From their dimensional vantage point, the crew watched as their weapons detonated in the enemy formation. The enhanced torpedoes didn't merely destroy individual ships. They created expanding spheres of quantum disruption that tore apart nearly 40,000 vessels in a cascading chain reaction. "Phase 1 successful," Okafor reported, recalculating optimal attack vector for second cycle. For the next hour, the Artemis executed a series of precision strikes against the void-borne fleet. materializing just long enough to deploy weapons before vanishing again. They systematically dismantled the alien formation. After the 8th attack cycle, they had destroyed nearly 200,000 more enemy vessels. But the Voidborn were learning. By the 12th cycle, they had adjusted their formation to minimize cascade effects. By the 15th, they had begun launching specialized hunter-killer units programmed to predict the Artemis re-entry points. Hull stress reaching critical levels, Way announced after the 16th tunneling cycle. Quantum-induced molecular degradation accelerating. We may only have 2 or 3 more cycles before catastrophic structural failure. As if to emphasize her point, a support beam on the bridge suddenly crystallized and shattered. Across the ship, materials began showing signs of quantum fatigue, metal becoming brittle, composites delaminating, energy conduits failing. The tactical situation was equally concerning. Despite their losses, the Voidborn still had over 200,000 ships remaining, and they had formed a tight defensive sphere around a massive command vessel that had just entered the system. New contact, Okafor reported. Dimensions exceed any previously observed Voidborn vessel by a factor of 10. Energy signatures suggest it's their equivalent of a flagship. Eliza studied the tactical display. That must be their supreme overmind, the coordinating intelligence for their entire invasion force. If we can destroy it, the remaining fleet might lose cohesion, Okafor finished. But it's at the center of their defensive formation. Even with tunneling, we'd have to pass through layers of their defense to reach it. Dr. Wei looked up from her console, her expression both determined and resigned. Captain, I've been analyzing the quantum stress patterns. There's a way we might be able to extend our operational capability for one final decisive strike. I'm listening. If we reconfigure the quantum core to create a controlled implosion upon final tunneling exit, we could generate a quantum singularity. The resulting collapse would destroy everything within a significant radius. A suicide run, Eliza stated flatly. We nodded. But if we target the Overmind vessel? Eliza didn't hesitate. How close would we need to get? Within 2 kilometers of its command core. Can you program the tunneling drive to place us there precisely? Yes, but we'd need to navigate through their defensive screens first. Each tunneling cycle brings us closer to structural failure. Eliza addressed the bridge crew. This was always likely to be a one-way mission. We've already exceeded expectations, destroying over half their fleet. Now we have a chance to end this threat completely. She activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for final engagement protocol. Non-essential personnel to escape pods. Several crew members exchanged glances, but no one moved toward the escape pods. Okafor spoke for all of them. With respect, Captain, if this is our last stand, we stay at our posts. Eliza nodded, pride evident in her expression. Very well. Battle stations. Dr. Wei, prepare the quantum core for final protocol. Tactical, plot us a course through their defensive screen to the Overmind vessel. The Artemis engaged its tunneling drive one final time, vanishing from normal space as it accelerated toward the heart of the Voidborn formation. Each subsequent re-entry and tunneling cycle brought them closer to their target, but also closer to destruction. After the 18th cycle, the ship's superstructure began to fail catastrophically. Structural integrity at 23%, reported an engineering officer as entire sections of the ship began to crystallize and fracture. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Emergency bulkheads holding, Okafor confirmed, but barely. Distance to Overmind vessel, Eliza demanded. 17,000 kilometers, Okafor replied. We need at least 2 more tunneling cycles to reach optimal position. Core temperature approaching absolute limit, Y warned. Quantum decay accelerating exponentially. Initiate 19th cycle, Eliza ordered. The Artemis phased out of normal space one more time. The tunneling effect now visibly unstable as reality warped chaotically around the vessel. When they re-entered normal space, they were just 5,000 kilometers from the Overmind vessel, a grotesque organic-mechanical hybrid, the size of a small moon. Final tunneling cycle initiated. Wei announced, her voice steady despite the bridge disintegrating around them. Core reconfigured for singularity generation upon exit. As the Artemis entered its final quantum tunnel, Elisa stood from her command chair and faced her crew. It has been an honor serving with each of you. What we do now will save Earth and give humanity a future. The massive Overmind vessel loomed before them as they prepared for final re-entry. Its surface bristled with weapons, and at its center pulsed what sensors identified as its primary consciousness node. Optimal position achieved, Okafor reported. Re-entry in 3, 2, 1. The Artemis materialized precisely 2 kilometers from the Overmind's central core. Before the alien vessel could react, Dr. Wei initiated the quantum core's controlled implosion sequence. For Earth, Elisa said quietly as reality itself began to bend around them. The Artemis's quantum core collapsed in on itself, creating a microscopic singularity that immediately began to expand. The human vessel disintegrated instantly, but the quantum chain reaction continued outward, engulfing the Overmind vessel and tearing it apart at the subatomic level. From Earth's orbital defense platforms, sensors recorded an extraordinary phenomenon. A sphere of distorted spacetime expanding outward from the point where the Artemis had made its final stand. As it engulfed the void-borne fleet, ships simply ceased to exist, their component atoms scattered across multiple quantum dimensions. When the quantum wave dissipated, long-range scans confirmed the impossible. The entire void-borne invasion force had been neutralized. A single human vessel had destroyed 500,000 alien warships. In the weeks that followed, as Earth began to rebuild its defenses and prepare for any future threats, a memorial was established in orbit at the exact coordinates from which the Artemis had departed on its final mission. Its simple inscription read, "For the crew of the TDF Artemis, who faced impossible odds with courage beyond measure, one ship against an armada. Humanity endures because of their sacrifice." And in deep space at the edge of the solar system, automated beacons broadcast a continuous message to the stars. Earth is protected. Approach with peaceful intent or not at all.